This release introduces font selection to new messages. I'm not going to go too much into detail about how to create new messages or how to broadcast them to multiple boards at the same time because that's covered elsewhere. I will just show you how to select the fonts in your message. It can get a little complicated. We're going to go through a simple scenario first and then get more complicated. So the new message form now looks like this. You're familiar with the justification controls and with the color controls, and I've just added this font selection control. All of these are things you're familiar with, so let's just go straight to font selection. I have a drop down here for selecting fonts, and as you can see I have 12 fonts on this particular message board, and this isn't very informative, of course. It says describes the font and gives you a font number, but if you really want to see what that looks like, you can press this help button over here and you get a pop-up that shows you what all the fonts look like, and so you know that 9 looks like this fairly big fixed space font, for instance. So use that to make your selections. So let's just say that we want kind of a medium-sized font. Here, let's look at that again. Number 4 is this guy, kind of a small medium font, and we're just going to write a message in that font. So I've selected the font here, and this will apply to the entire message. And I'm going to submit that and wait for it to happen. And we go back to the message board show view. It tells me that the message definition was successful and that the message activation was successful. These are new messages you might not have seen before, but they help you know what's happening. And here's my board saying hi there. I can also edit this message when I do that. Let's just go back there now and make things a little bit more complicated. I've selected my font for the message here. What I'm going to do now is specify a different font for each line. That changes my form a bit, and you can see here now each line in the form has a font selection. It's the same one that I've selected up here for the default font, but now I can go over here and select some other font. Let's say font 7. Let's just see what font 7 looks like. A little bit bigger and bolder than the other one. And you have to be careful, of course, because eventually you might select a font that's too big to say everything you want to say. So we'll show you how to get careful about that in a second. And let's just do that right now, actually. I can be somewhat careful about what I'm doing by hitting my preview button instead of my submit button. There's a tooltip that comes up over here now, and basically what it says is that when I hit the preview button, I'm going to get an image of what that message will look like on the board, but I'm not really talking to the board about it right now. I'm just generating an image locally. And so we're not absolutely guaranteed when we do a preview that it will show up exactly as we say. But let's do that and see what happens. The preview takes a couple of seconds to generate, and now we can see that I have 2 pages, a hi there and a hello, and they're with the fonts that I chose. Sometimes, for instance, if we do this, let's say I'll take another big font over here, and I'll add another line. When you do a preview in a situation like that, you'll see that it looks pretty close, like it's barely fitting there. So we might want to try to see what happens, whether the board really likes this message or whether it's going to tell me that my text is too big for the board. And the way to do that is, rather than submit right away, to do a define only instead of a define activate. And we might even want to say that we don't want to do that on message number 99 because we're used to using that for messages that are real, so maybe we'll just go to message number 80 and say define only, and now this message will actually be sent to the board. And if it's too long, if the board thinks I can't do this, it will tell us. So now we can do a submit and wait for the update to happen. And it said message definition was successful, which is not a surprise because it did look like it fit in that image, but let's go look at it real quick. Well, actually, let's look at it real quick. changeable messages, we're looking for number 80. And here it is. Hi there, hello. Pretty much as we said it would be. So we could activate that message right now as we usually did. We would select here and we'd say activate selected. We're not going to bother doing that right now. Let's see what happens when the message doesn't fit. It doesn't work nicely. I'll do a new message. I'll select for the entire board, let's say, a big font. Font number 12 is, actually font number 9 is the biggest font, so let's do that one. And we'll just do too much here. And let's do a preview. And we can already see here that this is just not going to work. But let's say we weren't sure. Let's do a define only rather than activate. And let's define this one in message number 81, so we don't maybe really care what's going on there. And submit that. And wait for the board to respond. Now it says, nice big red message definition status text too big, and you have an edit link. So that's pretty much what we expected there. If we went back down to look at message number 81, we wouldn't see what we saw, what we put there. So we'll just hit the edit link. We're back where we were. Everything is selected as it was before. Let's just erase that second one. And let's see if hello alone fits. Let's do a preview. That looks good. It remembers that we were in define only mode from before. Every time we go back to this page, we'll remember our mode, so there are no mistakes. And this one should work. And here we go, message definition successful. There is no activation because we didn't activate it. We chose define only. Let's go look at it real quick. I think we were on message 81. There it is, and we can just activate that now. Activate selected. And now it says message activation is successful. And sure enough, we're on message 81, and it says what we wanted it to say. That's about all there is to new message font selection. Let's go over this again real quick. I can select fonts by line, but if I don't, then one font will do all the lines. I've got this tooltip over here that tells you what the fonts look like. I've got a message over here on top of the preview button that tells you what preview can and cannot do. And I've got another little help tooltip over here. When you see a question mark, you can click on it. Some tooltips, like in the preview situation, that's just it. If your mouse is there, it will show up, but on the help buttons, rather than having things pop up everywhere, this guy actually have to click on it, and it will tell you the difference between define and activate and define only, and also has a note there about how define only can be used to verify that a message is okay for the board. And that's about it for message creation and definition. There are a couple of complications that get involved here. Let's go back to our message board list. And if I go to a new board that I've never updated before, and I try to show it, and you will see this the first time you try to show any board that you currently have, you'll see a message here that says that this message board has an unknown number of fonts, and since it has an unknown number of fonts, I will only allow you to select the first one of two fonts, which every board always has. So, and if I want more font information, then I need to do an update to get that information. So let's just see what that looks like. I'll go into define a new message for this board. I have the same warning over here, and I have only two fonts that I can select from, because those are the only two fonts that are guaranteed to be on every board. If I go back and do an update on this board, now that message won't appear anymore, and if I go and do a new message, I don't have that warning here anymore, and I have 12 fonts to choose from because that's what that board has. So a little bit of groundwork you have to do to actually use the fonts, because the system has to know what fonts the board has. Another little bit of work that needs to be done for boards that you've previously used is, let's go back to the main list, and let's go look at this board that I've already done lots of updates on it. And this has to do with the permanent and changeable messages that you might have already updated and uploaded to the system. If you look at the permanent messages that you already have uploaded, maybe, you can see here all the permanent messages. If you look at one of your own boards, you'll see the same font in all the messages. But if you look at mine here, once I get to some interesting, here's an interesting one. This one has a different font, number 28. And once you get into the 30s, there are all sorts of interesting fonts here. And if you look at your own, you may see that they all look the same. They're all the same font. That's because you did a refresh of your stored messages before the font feature existed. So if you want to see these messages in the fonts that they really are in, then just do a refresh permanent messages again for any board for which you want to see that, and then your list will look more like this. And the same goes for your changeable messages. If you have any changeable messages that have different fonts in them from the past, you'll have to do one more update now, one more refresh, in order for this list to contain the fonts looking the way they should. And I think actually that that's all there is to font selection. Not so bad. That's it.